Good morning, everyone. It's Sue Cameron here. We're just going to wait a minute or so and admit a few more people, and then we'll start. Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming along to our Are You Ready for Winter? Essential preparation for disability support providers. As I said, I'm Susan Cameron. I'm the ACT COVID-19 Sector Support Coordinator. So a lot of my work is spent supporting the disability sector to be prepared for any COVID outbreak in the community or within their organisation. And today we have some wonderful guests. I'll introduce them shortly. But before I do, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting today. Here it's the Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, because they hold the memories, the tradition, the culture, and the hope of the people. Okay, well, I'm just going to go through the housekeeping. Unless you're speaking, please keep your microphone on mute. Virtually raise your hand if you have a question or comment. However, questions for ACT Health, and if this applies to our other presenters, please let us know. But questions for ACT Health will be taken on notice. So we need you to pop those in the chat function, and then ACT Health will respond, and we'll get that information to you before Easter. And just so that you know, we are recording the webinar, so we will be sending that out to you with our resource pack before the break. Okay, today there is a little bit of a change in the agenda. We have from ACT Health, we have Jess Bell up front. I'll introduce Jess shortly. We're actually going to have Simon Edwards from the NDIA present, be our second presenter. And our third presenter will be Mahashni Krishna from the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission. And then at the end of it, I'm just going to do a bit of an overview, and hopefully there'll be time for some questions and answers. Okay, so moving along, I would like to introduce ACT Health representative Jess Bell. Jess is the acting director, of Outbreak Preparedness and Response. So we're delighted to have you here today, Jess. Thank you for giving us your time. I'll stop sharing my screen now.
I'll just start. Oh, sorry, I made a really quick update. Can you take that one down? Sorry, Emerson, and I'll try and share mine. If not, I'll send this updated one through to you. Is that coming through?
That's perfect.
Fantastic.
Actually, it's just switched back to PowerPoint rather than your presentation.
I have no idea why it's doing that. From beginning, it's just going to PowerPoint. Is that better? No.
Yes, that's perfect.
Fantastic. There we go. Hello. Thank you everybody for inviting me to speak at the webinar today. My name is Jessica Bell, and I'm the Acting Director for Outbreak Preparedness and Response for high risk settings in the ACT. And so, well, not for high risk settings, but for outbreak preparedness and response. I'd like to also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting today, the Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge the challenges and the commitment that's been demonstrated by disability providers to people with disability in preparing and responding to COVID-19. Today I'm going to talk about vaccination, about winter planning, and about access to resources and supports that are available through ACT Health. The ACT government is currently preparing for winter. We are expecting to see a resurgence of influenza in 2022. In the past 2 years, we've seen a reduction in influenza circulating, but as our international borders have reopened and public health social measures have reduced, we expect to see increased influenza numbers over winter, which underscores the importance of all clients and staff working in the disability sector to have their annual influenza vaccine, which ACT Health strongly recommends. So vaccination remains the best protection from serious illness and hospitalisation for people who have COVID-19. The good news is that from as of 10th of March, 98.8% of NDIS workers are up to date with their COVID-19 vaccinations. And as I'm sure hopefully all of you are aware, ACT Health CHO amended the public health directions on the 16th of March to reflect the updated HPPC recommendations. So from 28 March 2022, all staff employed in disability and aged care service delivery, including in-home, in-community and residential aged care facilities, must remain up to date with their COVID-19 vaccinations to be able to work in these sectors. So these are aligned with the TARGI recommendations as well. ACT Health recommends obviously that people, clients in disability are up to date with their COVID-19 vaccinations, and ATAGI have also advised recently that influenza vaccines can be co-administered even on the same day as the COVID-19 vaccinations. ACT Health continues to run their access and sensory clinic 2 days a week out of the AIS Stadium, and the information for that is on the ACT Health website. As I mentioned before, flu vaccine is recommended for all clients and staff in disability. So the other thing that ATAGI have recently announced is that from the 4th of April, a winter dose is available to the following people 4 months after their booster dose. So the eligibility criteria are on the Department of Health website and on the ATAGI website, but it's recommended as well that eligible people receive a winter dose as well for COVID-19. So how can organisations be winter ready? Well, encouraging staff and clients to be up to date with their flu and COVID vaccines, as we've just gone through. Check if clients are eligible for a COVID-19 winter dose, and review business continuity planning, including stock levels and staffing. ACT Health has recently updated the advice for disability providers. So this website, I believe, is now out of date. There are 4 new websites that are available on the ACT Health website that have very recently gone up. We undertook consultation on those as well, so some minor amendments are going to be made over the coming weeks, and once those have been made, a letter from the Chief Health Officer will go out to all providers, alerting them of the changes that have been made and those that are most relevant to them. So the ACT Health website has clear resources and guidance on testing and vaccination, mental health and wellbeing, information for providers, managing outbreaks or exposures in residential services, PPE, testing, food and essential provisions, rights and accessing further support. So it's important that providers do check the website updates for updates regularly. It does update. If there are any key updates, we try to alert the sector directly as well. So that, and we are starting to incorporate as well ways to highlight any advice that has changed and making sure that that's really clear to providers. Influenza vaccinations, as I mentioned, can be co-administered. And these are free under the National Immunisation Program for people who are eligible. They can also be accessed through GPs and pharmacies. So the other thing I really wanted to highlight is that ACT Health runs a team of outbreak support officers, and they can be reached through the email address at the bottom, sitelo.covid@act.gov.au. And those outbreak support officers are available to provide really detailed and nuanced advice if anybody actually needs help navigating the advice or the information that is on the website, or if they just want to clarify or confirm their interpretation. And so we can help work out infectious periods for staff or clients who have been diagnosed with COVID. We can help work out a testing schedule. If there are any critical issues that you have identified around workforce, around PPE, if that's something that you're noticing, by all means flag it with SciDelo and we can help you work through that and link to the appropriate resources to help support you. And we also can link to the technical specialists within ACT Health to provide really detailed infection prevention control guidance as well. So that's everything from me. If there are any questions, by all means, please pop them in the chat, and then I'll work with it within ACT Health to get a response to you in the coming days.
Thank you so much, Jess. That was much appreciated. And thank you to ACT Health for, the wonderful support. And I know how well you have coordinated with the disability sector on making sure the information that's up on your website is easy to navigate and is of great help. I'd really recommend everyone go on and have a look at that. Also, it's wonderful to know about those, was it outreach or outbreak officers?
Yeah, the outbreak support officers.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think most providers will be really happy to know that sort of support is there. So Thank you very much, Jess. Okay, well, moving right along, I'd like to introduce Simon Edwards, who is from the NDIA, and Simon is the National COVID-19 Response Coordinator. Thank you very much, Simon, for joining us today. I'll just mute myself and let you go ahead.
No worries. Thank you very much, Susan, and welcome. Good morning, all. Yes, I'm here to talk to you about some of the supports and encouragement we're putting in place for providers around contingency planning and preparations for the coming winter season. I know that I'm speaking today just ahead of an NDIS Commission representative, so I won't steal their thunder, but the arrangements and the supports we offer do come hand in hand and support the practice standards that the Commission has in place, particularly around emergency and disaster management. One of the things that we are strongly encouraging providers to do, though, and that's really building on the lessons learned over the last couple of years, particularly the recent Omicron period, where we've learned a lot about how to manage and support providers to manage workforce disruptions and so forth, is to prepare and plan early, particularly smaller providers where the capacity to absorb disruptions and workforce needing to isolate or even managing an outbreak is more challenging perhaps than for larger providers that may be a little more practiced. We have been working hand in hand with the Commission, with a number of our larger providers, the Peaks and others, to put together some supports and tools that are available online to help providers do this sort of contingency planning. It focuses very much on things like infection control, how to make appropriate use of PPE, access to RATs, which of course we're distributing at the moment to SIL providers around the country, and also a strong focus on workforce management. The Commission has resources and information on their website, as I'm sure you'll hear in a moment. The agency does also. I'm just about to put the link in the chat about where you can find further information about the sort of contingency planning tools that we can offer. The sorts of supports we do have there, though, is there are some tools and some templates, some guides and other materials that one of our partner organisations, Life Without Barriers, has developed and have put on their website and have made freely available to organisations around the country. They've noted something like 10,000 downloads of those tools about a month ago, so they are being well utilised from what we can tell. There's a huge number of options in there. There's over 170 different documents, but the intent there is to provide some tried and true things that have worked for others for organisations to try. They're not there to say they need to be used in a particular way. They're simply there as a support, as something that people can make use of. The agency also has a support available through an organisation we've contracted with named GenU, which a number of you will be familiar with. We've asked them to provide a national workforce support service to providers around the country. It's been operating since Christmas. It's a peer support service, and that recognises that workforce and disability workforce in the sector is contained and managed within the sector. And part of the support that GenU offers is to help providers work through infection control issues, disruptions, apparent workforce shortages, and how perhaps to recover services internally and to prepare for the future, or if need be, to potentially source supplementary workforce from elsewhere within the sector to assist over a short period. In the ACT, I'm sure a number of you would be aware that Focus has also been assisting, including recently with supplying workforce to other organisations when that's been needed. And we can offer, and we've been running a series of webinars and information sessions with GenU for providers around the country, just to provide a bit of coaching support for those that perhaps need or would like a bit more assistance in developing some of their contingency plans. So I will put the note in the chat of the email address at the agency that we have made public. If organisations are needing assistance with workforce support matters, if they're facing a shortage that they think will disrupt an essential service, please make contact with us. We can reach out ourselves or connect you with GenU. And part of the coaching support they offer also helps support and prepare people for winter. Similarly, if there's a tier 1 referral that goes to the Commission, they are also passed across to us, and we will pick those up and have a look and reach out and make contact as need be. But we encourage people to contact us directly as soon as you need to. So that the real message from me is to get those contingency plans updated and tested now. And that really includes things like what happens if you do find that you've got workforce with infection or workforce that needs to isolate, or participants that you care for that have become infected with COVID. How do you manage those outbreaks? How do you manage the disruption to workforce? Who do you partner with amongst your peers to help get you through those periods? The other message that we're sharing a little bit on is the value and the need to encourage and support participants, particularly some participants who are receiving in-home supports, to prepare and do their own contingency planning and have options ready to go if they happen to catch COVID, if their favourite workers or their services are disrupted and can't provide the in-reach to them that they are used to. What other supports can they access, including friends and family, other community supports, support providers of support coordination services. We really are asking to reach out and do some of that pre-planning with participants now. We also have some tools on our website that can help with that. I'll put those in the chat in a moment. And also about having different providers, different workers available, just looking at any and all options to help provide different backup arrangements for participants that need them. And for those that perhaps don't have support coordination available to them, our partners in the community are also there to provide that type of assistance to help prepare for winter. So I might pause there. I'll put another couple of messages and links in the chat right now. I'm not sure whether we're allowing time for questions, but that's probably enough from me for the moment.
Thank you so much, Simon. That information was very helpful. I think that of concern, I'm sure, to know that you have partnered with GenU and they can provide some mentoring support around workforce. And as you said, we already have had focus in the ACT assisting in some emergency situations. I think all those links that you're going to put in the chat will be wonderful. And I'd just like to say thank you very much for taking the time to come along today. And it's great to know that we have that support available to us. So thank you, Simon. What I will now do is introduce Mahashni Krishna, who is the State Director, New South Wales and ACT for the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission. Mahashni, I hope I've got your title correct. If not, I'll let you speak on that, but I'll mute myself now and let you talk. Thank you.
Susan, thank you so much to you and the team for inviting me to speak today. The couple of things I'll speak about, which I've spoken to this group before, is the new emergency and disaster management practice standard that came into force on the 24th of January, and just some of the things that are required under that. Simon mentioned T1 referrals going through to the NDIA, and I'll put a link in about the notifications that providers need to do if there's a significant change or an outbreak or a COVID positive participant or worker. And I'll provide all of those links and resources after I've finished. So I am going to try to share my screen, but we do have some difficulty with Zoom. But can people see my screen?
Yes, Mahashni, we can, but we're actually, we're not seeing the slide itself. We're seeing the presentation screen.
Oh, let me see if I can.
Yeah, that's.
Yep.
Yeah,
so this is the main slide that I'll be talking to. I've sent the presentation to Kerry, who can share the broader presentation, but the main focus about emergency and disaster management is around that planning that providers should do, which includes business continuity plans, minimum viable rosters. What are you going to do if you have a shortage of workforce? Is that going out to GenU? Is that about working with other providers in your local area to see if there's any staff available? What is your contingency planning should there be an outbreak? And as we learned from Omicron, where there are significant staffing shortages, those plans should be put in place already or being done to ensure that you're ready if anything happens, because you're going to have the flu season, and if there's an outbreak, you're going to get affected by both the flu and an outbreak of COVID. Emergency and disaster management, of course, is also broader because it covers things like floods. So Northern New South Wales and Queensland recently had flooding, so it covers those emergencies as well, and also bushfires. So it is much broader than COVID or a major flu outbreak, but it is about any disasters that could occur. The key outcomes, which are part of the quality indicators, is for providers to do that planning, ensure that you consult with participants, families and their supporters, including any guardians they have in place, be that the public guardian or a private guardian, and to communicate what your plan is. What will you do if there is an outbreak? What will you do if there is staff shortages? And that is not just to participants, but also to your staff, because it gives them the confidence to know that as a provider, you're ready for these emergency situations. And should anything occur, this is what you will put in place, and this is how you will make sure that services are continued for participants, and how are you going to provide safety and protection to your staff. Then there is the training component, so training your staff and talking through the training program with participants and their families, supporters, and guardians. So they're aware of the training that staff have received, which could include around PPE, around infection control. When are you providing the training? Having built-in refresher training, and also how are you inducting new staff who are coming in to ensure they're aware of this standard, but also of what you as a provider have in place around an outbreak, around the flu season, and what are you going to do should anything like that occur. We've been through a couple of different variants at the moment, starting with what all in 2020 and then the various new variants, Delta and Omicron. And all of them hopefully have encouraged you to continue to review your business continuity plans, your emergency management plans, your disaster management plans, your COVID safe plans, your minimal viable rosters. And that review and continuous improvement needs to continue to happen to make sure that you're able to address and deal with anything that occurs in this circumstance. There is an obligation on providers under Section 13 and 13A of the rules to inform the Commissioner if there is an outbreak, if there is a positive participant, if you have a positive worker that impacts on your delivery of services, or if there is a significant change in the delivery of services. I will put the link of the notification in the chat as soon as I stop sharing my screen. Those are the notifications that Simon was referring to. It is important for you to make those notifications because the tier 1 will be set through the NDIA and it'll trigger all the support that Simon earlier spoke about. The sooner you do it, the sooner the referral to the agency, the NDIA, but please ensure that if you haven't done a few that have previously happened, to have them, to put those notifications through so that we have a record of what has occurred. If you need any assistance, there is our 1-800 number, which I will also put in the chat, and you can definitely call us and have a conversation with us. We regulate providers so we can assist you. While we can't provide staffing, what we can do is walk you through what your obligations are and what are the things you need to have in place, and what are the things that you are meant to do to ensure continuity of service, that you don't cease service to participants in the community. I will stop sharing now. Another important aspect is, another important thing to keep in mind is there is a mandatory vaccination, and I think Lisa, I hope Lisa, I got the name right. Lisa mentioned that as at the 28th of March, all disability support workers and aged care workers need to be fully vaccinated. The Commission also has the mandatory vaccination reporting, which is something that you need to complete and send through. That includes the booster doses for your staff. There are some providers, as an example, who have included the requirement to be vaccinated as part of their employment conditions. I'm not suggesting for everyone to do this, but this is just an example of what some other providers have done to ensure that when they're engaging people, they're aware of their obligations to be fully vaccinated or have a proper medical exemption, and that all that conversation happens up front. Last but not least, I will share the resources as well. I know Simon shared some, so there may be some duplication with what Simon has shared, but I will also share through all the resources that are available on the Commission's website that will be able to assist you. And keep an eye on your state and territory, your ACT Health website, on any updates that are happening and any public health orders or anything that come out, and ensure that you comply with that, because that is also an obligation of your registration to comply with state and territory laws. Susan, that's my that's what I will be discussing today. I will, as I finish, put all the links in the chat so everyone has access to it. As I mentioned, I have sent a presentation through. Please share that with everyone who's attended, because what I've done in the presentation, which the previous one I hadn't done in, is I've broken down the emergency and disaster management practice standard and not only identified what that is, but that standard in itself went and made changes to some of the other practice standards and quality indicators in other practice standards, and I've highlighted those in red so all providers are aware of what other quality indicators have changed across all of the practice standards. But thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, thank you so much, Mahashni. As always, that was excellent information. And yes, I have seen the presentation that you sent through to Kerry, and we'll ensure that that is sent through with our resource package from the webinar today. Mahashni, I did allow time at the end of the webinar for questions and answers. Are you able to stay on, or should we do that now?
Oh no, I'm definitely staying on for the whole thing, because it's very informative for me as well to make sure I'm across what's happening so I can let providers know who contact me. So I'll definitely be here.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, well, it's actually, I'm going to share my screen now. If you just give me a moment, I will do that. And go here. Emerson, could you let me know if you can see my screen, because I don't have that view from where I am.
Yes, we can see your screen and it's on Winter Essentials slide.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Now, everything that our wonderful presenters have spoken about this morning is really, I've put together a presentation, and I've noticed that each one of them has at least touched on, if not all, many of what I have, much of what I have here, but I do have it so that I've got resource links in the slides. So some of the slides I might quickly talk through, but then you will be able to go in later and access that resource. So I'm looking at Winter Essentials overall, and these are the messages that are coming through. You need a robust business continuity plan. Importantly, and it was mentioned, if you provide support to people in their own homes, particularly ensure they have an individualised plan if COVID should impact them. We've heard much of the necessity to have as many of your clients and staff vaccinated with COVID and flu, having COVID and flu vaccinations. And of course, COVID has been mandated for support workers to be up to date. You still need to have, obviously, and I'm sure now it's just a way of life for everyone, but your infection prevention and control measures in place, and ample supplies of PPE and RATs. So I'm just going to briefly go through each one of those. So I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, winter essential number one, planning. Obviously, you need to ensure the safety of those you're supporting. Also a blueprint for future pandemics and emergencies. And as Mahashni was advising us, that you need a plan to be compliant with the NDIS emergency and disaster management standards. So number one in your toolkit should be to ensure that you have a robust plan. So I'm just very briefly going to touch on a few things, because I'll let you know we do have a webinar coming up about planning shortly. But in terms of how to plan, focus on worst case scenario, what would happen if all of your support workers who supported a particular individual, if they all came down with either COVID or the flu. So always look at those situations. I have linked, and I believe, I am sure that Jess has probably linked you to this information, but there are resources. These are the new web pages that Jess spoke about that have been created specifically to assist people in the disability sector. So we've got information for people with disability and their carers, information for carers, community and in-home care. We have managing COVID in disability residential settings and managing COVID in non-residential settings. And you will see there's a vast amount of resources there. I'll talk about later the NDS ACT hub, We have a toolkit there that also has many resources on how to plan. The NDIS has an information pack. And this here, there are templates you will find at the Community Services Industry Alliance. I'm just trying to move on. My slides sorry, my mouse doesn't want to do it. Here we go. So this by any means is not everything that you need to know, but you need to think of, how am I going to be prepared? What is my response going to be? And then, as previously mentioned, you review and revise, learn from your experiences and adjust them. I'm not going to read this all out, but just a couple of examples. You might say, okay, have I got IPC procedures properly in place? And are my staff trained? Are the COVID vaccinations up to date for my staff? Flu vaccinations, have I been encouraging them strongly, etc. So there's a list of things there that you need your plan to address, and by no means is that a finite list. There are many, many other aspects you can look at depending on your own operation. Now, so when you're looking at your response, you know, what if a participant becomes unwell? What if many of the staff are unwell? So that comes back to looking for a backup workforce. What if you run out of your PPE and RATs? Are there things you can do, like move a service online if you are impacted by COVID? So they're just some of the things that you need to be thinking of. And these are the things that we're going to be covering. We have on the 19th of May, NDS will be running a business continuity planning webinar. We know that all of you would already have plans in place, but sometimes just, you know, ensuring you have the right amount of detail so that when an emergency may occur, that there's no panic or second guessing, that you've just got everything there and you know exactly what to do. So you can see the link for that is here, and we will be promoting that over the next few weeks. So winter essential number 2, individualised plans for clients. So as often has happened, we've noticed with experience with COVID in the disability sector, sometimes it's necessary to have unfamiliar staff to come in and support a particular client. Now, that in itself can be stressful for the client, but also for the staff member if they don't actually know that particular person. So your organisation may have your own individual plans, but if not, what I've put here is a link to the COVID-19 person-centred emergency preparedness planning for COVID-19. Now, this was adapted for the ACT. I'll just see if I can bring it up here for a minute. It may not easily come on, no, so I won't worry about that. I will let you go in and have a look at that link there. Okay, so moving along, the winter essential number 3, COVID-19 and flu vaccinations for staff and clients. So we know that staff have been mandated to be up to date, and that was very encouraging to see such a high percentage of NDIS registrants up to date there. Sorry, that might have been actually participants, not staff, but I haven't heard of any issues with staff being up to date. And the winter dose that Jess spoke about is encouraged for vulnerable individuals, which, as you can see, that does include residents of aged care and disability care facilities, as well as people with severe immunocompromise. Long word. Okay, so we encourage your clients to be fully vaccinated, and again, ACT Health spoke about the winter dose. I'm also just providing information here, the fact that the Commonwealth is going and running an InReach program into disability support organisations. I think that commenced on the 4th of April. And if you are a provider who that applies to, you can see, and you haven't heard from them, there is a link to an expression of interest form right there. And also, as mentioned before, flu and COVID vaccines can be co-administered on the same day. So that might be something that you would like to consider. Okay, another thing that I know that we've focused on a great deal in the past, and I'm sure everybody's across it now, but it is to ensure that all your infection prevention and control measures are in place. There's a couple of links there to the ACT advice. And I guess just generally, a lot of it, you know, really is common sense in that workers should not come to work when they're feeling unwell. It may be COVID, it may be the flu, it may be something else which is infectious. So really, that is something that you need to stress because you could be preventing an outbreak of flu or COVID by ensuring unwell workers do stay at home. You can use the rapid antigen testing as a surveillance tool, and I'll talk about that a little later on. Obviously, physical distancing, ventilation, I know can be an issue in winter. We don't really want to open up those windows and be blasted with cold air, but you know, where possible, if there's some winter sunlight and, for example, the meeting might be better held outside in the fresh air rather than everyone enclosed in a room. Practice good hygiene, increase your cleaning and maintenance. You can obviously use additional PPE in increased risk environments and limit contact between staff working different shifts. There's also some more advice which you will find actually on the ACT Health website, some guidance for you, but little things that you may have already covered, or if not, you could consider now, such as conducting your handovers between staff via the phone instead of in person. You can cohort staff to work in particular areas or wings and minimise, I know that most providers have minimised staff mixing across shifts as much as possible and limit social contact between people swapping over on shifts. You can hold meetings virtually. Perhaps ensure staff working changeover shifts are not using the same locker room or shared facilities at shift changeover. And, you know, have strategies in place to avoid staff spending time together unmasked in tea rooms, etc. So you might even look at rostering of meal breaks. So again, I don't think it's an exhaustive list, but if you think to yourself, how can I minimise the potential of spread? I'm sure there are practices that you can implement. Pardon me. So, oh, excuse me. Winter essential number 5, ample stock of PPE and RATs. Now, what I've put up there is NDS has created an outbreak calculator where you can put in some figures and determine what you should have on hand in the case of a COVID outbreak. So the link's there, which will be to you this afternoon with the slides. And we also have a recently created RATS, rapid antigen testing surveillance calculator. So if you choose to use RATS as a surveillance tool, you can go into that calculator and see how many RATS tests you might need to have on hand. There's, pardon me again, surveillance testing is most beneficial when workers are tested 2 to 3 times a week with at least a 72-hour interval before taking each test. And of course, a staff member that tests positive on a RAT test would be considered a probable COVID-19 case and must go directly into self-isolation and must get a PCR test to confirm, or I should say would be recommended to get a PCR test to confirm that diagnosis, so that providers can ensure they don't return until, well, it's got here a negative rapid antigen test has been returned. So, pardon me, I think either or, either the negative RAT or the negative PCR. We have some information here around rapid antigen testing from With Your Workers from Fair Work Australia, which is worthwhile looking at. And this is the link that on the NDS resource for information on RATS test and the surveillance calculator. Oh, I think I may have, yeah. Okay, so I've just tried to sort of put an umbrella around those things that we would recommend that you look at. But right now, I just wanted to highlight that we do have ACT-specific resources and also national COVID resources on the NDS website. So we're very fortunate that NDS has made that available, because it's not just available to NDS members in the ACT, it's available to members and non-members. Now, if you don't remember the exact link, or you're not quite sure, you can just go into Google and write those 3 words like NDS, ACT, COVID-19. If you just put that into your search bar, it will come up with the ACT COVID-19 response hub. I'm going to see, I know it didn't work for me before, but I would like to see if I can bring it up to show you. And I'll just let's see if this is it. Okay, I'm just going to have to move it across to the right screen. Oh, it's not going to do it for me. I'm just going to ask Emerson. Emerson, it's on my second screen. Is there a way I can, oh, you've brought it up, Emerson. Thank you. Is everyone seeing that?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so this is your ACT. It is for you specifically. And what we have here is just this homepage, which you will see here. And in fact, I need to update that to link to the new web pages, but it has specific ACT COVID-19 online resources, as you can see there. Thank you. So we've got the disability pages information here, WorkSafe information, NDS information, and of course, ACT Health. If we scroll back up to the top, you will see then, we don't need to go into these, but news, it will not just be ACT specific news. You will also see news around the nation that relates to COVID-19. So that's excellent. The same with events and trainings. You will find our ACT webinars here, but from time to time, there will be national webinars that are open to members and non-members around COVID. And this is where you can go and see what's available. If it is listed underneath this particular button, then it means whether you're a member or not, you can go to that event. Here we have recordings, and I'm hoping, Emerson, you might be able to go into that link there. What we've done is we've run a number of workshops over the last 12 months, And so we've had them made accessible, and we've placed them here on the ACT Response Hub. So you can go in there and refer back to any of those webinars. We're aware that people's time is quite poor, so we have edited them down so that they really just have the key information. But you can see beyond that, you've also got access to national COVID NDS webinars, those that are available to the public. So that's excellent. Thanks, Emerson. And then if we go back, the next thing is our workforce register. And I will ask you again, Emerson, to go into this because I think it's very important. You did hear from the NDIA that they have a GenU who they've enlisted as a mentor around trying to maximise your workforce capability, and in some instances they may be able to provide workforce. We also have providers in the ACT who have put their name down that you can contact if you have a workforce issue, a shortage, or perhaps you've had to shut down services and you have staff that you're not able to continue to employ. So the one that isn't listed here is Focus, simply because they used to be one of the contingent care panel through the NDIA, but all these other organisations are happy to talk to you about workforce. If we keep going down, as Emerson has scrolled through there, we've also got some nursing agencies. We've got the NDIS provider support workforce arrangements there, and other additional contacts and resources. Thanks, Emerson. We might go back to the home page. Now, the toolkit, which I'll get Emerson to click on too, this amazing toolkit is actually one that has so many resources in it. It is the NDS toolkit, available for, it has been created by NDS as part of a project in Victoria. As you know, they suffered quite a significant outbreak at the beginning. They have a project called the Safer and Stronger webinar, and they have linked us to all of their resources. So I'm sure you don't have any spare time, but if you have a bit of spare time, you might like to go into that. You can see there's all sorts of things around business continuity, governance. It's all around COVID. Okay. Thanks, Emerson. And thanks, Emerson. We might stop, if you don't mind, stop sharing the screen. I'm just going to have a quick look at the time. Okay, well, we've got 4 minutes left. So I can't actually see the chat bar on my screen, but does anyone have any questions for me, for Mahashni from the Quality and Safeguards Commission? Jess, I know Health will probably take it on notice and come back to you, but if you haven't put it in the chat, maybe you could make her aware of what it was. Unfortunately, I think Simon from the NDIA had to go into another meeting, but look, I've just asked anyone who had a question for any of us, if they could just put their virtual hand up, and we'll see if we can answer it for you today.
So there's no questions in the chat as yet, so we'll just give them a few more moments.
Sure.
Sue, I think we've got a really shy bunch today, or we've covered everything they need to know.
Well, let's hope we've covered everything they need to know. But look, thanks, Emerson. I do appreciate that a lot of the information, there's quite a lot of information to take in. You've heard a lot of information before, but I I guess the reason we just want to provide the best support that we possibly can. So if you think of something after the webinar or when you receive the resources, please send myself or Kerry Langford an email, Kerry being the NDS ACT manager, and we will try and source that information for you. I'd just like to say thank you again to all of our presenters today. Thank you to Emerson, who I wouldn't have got through this webinar without your assistance. And thank you to everyone who came today. I hope you have a lovely Easter, and just know that we're always on hand to help you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Sue.
Thanks, bye.
Okay, that's it.
Hi, Emerson.
All done.
Oh.
A few thank yous came through, so that was nice.
Oh, good. Yeah. Oh, look, I'm.
She's awesome.
Pardon?
Be best friends with her, Kat.
Kat's, oh, you would love her. You
Oh,
would be really
her.
good friends. Yeah, she's just, oh, no, she's so good. Yeah, she's funny. And yeah, you should get to know her. I'm sure she'll be, you know, when things get back to face, she'll be coming into the office or whatever. Yeah, but that's good. But thank you, Emerson. Very much appreciated. I'm glad. I was a bit worried that, you know, I mightn't have time to get through all 9, but I think the key thing is when I send out the slideshow and also the ACT Health one, they're going to have some resources that they can refer to.
And I stuck in the chat some of the resources as you spoke about them.
Wonderful.
But I'll just send you through the resources that the other presenters put in, just so you've got those.
And so how many actually turned up, do you know? I mean, I looked at the list, but I didn't add them up.
Yeah, 20-ish.
20-ish? Okay. Well, that's better than nothing. Initially, I was thinking we might only have half a dozen when it came to 10 o'clock. Oh, thanks, Emerson. Yeah, that's come through. Oh, and Coco didn't snore. So grateful
Well,
for that.
Mimi's really upset because she came in thinking that you and Coco were going to be here.
Oh, I couldn't. I actually was so scared to move the stuff. I really thought, look.
And I understand that.
Oh,
I
I'm
would
so
worry about
sorry.
that too.
I just got really, I actually got quite panicky this morning. I was really worried about it because I'm so used to Kerry running the show. I've, you know, haven't done very many. And can she come in tomorrow again?
Come again. She didn't come today.
Oh, well, I'd say I'd come over to Savo, but I'm just quite, I've got to get the, oh God, I've got my report done, thankfully. About to send that off to Kerry, but I've got to do the handover notes because I've got to do the handover with Kerry online tomorrow.
I forgot to stop recording.